Calling meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025. Time is 4:45. We're Hammond City Council Chambers. Call to order. Yeah, clarification of meeting notice.
The agenda was posted here at our office and online 24 hours in advance.
Thank you. Roll call.
John Exnicius.
Here.
Mary Gito.
Here.
Todd DeLon.
Here.
Chance Kinchin. Kayla Morgan. Hillary Rochek.
All right. Amend agenda. Is there anything that we need to amend?
I don't think so.
All right. Minutes for May 14th, 2025.
I'd like to make a motion. Oh, give me a second. If you can consent agenda. You got to click on. Oh, let's see. I'll give y'all a minute, and I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from May 14th.
Alrighty. John Exnicius.
Yes.
Mary Gito.
Yes.
Todd DeLon.
Yes.
Chance Kinchin. Kayla Morgan. Hillary Rochek.
All right. Next one, June 3rd, 2025 minutes.
If I wasn't there, do I have to abstain from
Yeah, you
voting?
should abstain from it, yep.
Yeah, I make a movement to approve these minutes as well from this.
Technically, it wasn't actually, we don't need to have a motion for this.
Okay. All right, good, because it's not, yeah.
That wasn't official.
They're very long, minutes.
Maybe. Give me 2 seconds. I gotta press back and I can't. Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you. All right, the financial statement.
This is 11 months out of 12 months, so this is towards the end of our fiscal year. We are awaiting a check reissue from the sheriff's office because there was a check for $46,000 that did not show up here in the city. So I don't know where it went, but it was never cashed. It was never applied to our account. So we're awaiting one more check to be issued to us with respect to our revenue. Kind of standard everything else here between what we budgeted and what we are spending. You can kind of see at the bottom there that we are underspending what we budgeted for. There may be most of that's related to some of our infrastructure kind of project line items. We still have some money remaining for sidewalks, and with the new budget, the new fiscal year coming into play on July 1st, our unutilized funds from the residential allocations will be cycled into their own project account. Anything that we don't spend is put into our general fund, which goes into our fund balance. So generally we try to run the budget as accurately as we can, and so just kind of an update on that. But our new budget starting on July 1st.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget as submitted.
John Exnicius.
Yes.
Mary Gito.
Yes.
Todd DeLon.
Yes.
Chance Kinchin. Kayla Morgan. Hillary Rochek.
All right, next up, director's report.
I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I know when we last met we had a busy month in May, with a lot of coordination with the city on several projects. We do, got a lot of working items right now. The intersection redesign project is still underway. Contracting for that between the Louisiana Main Street Managers Association and Holly & Smith Architects is in the process of being finalized. We worked with the city on several items, like I said, for the months of April and May, which you can see listed here. Landscaping, maintenance items, so that's been a really big help to us in downtown. I didn't get a chance to update all of this, but in talking to DOTD about our striping request, ultimately, we've had on the books for almost 18 months or 2 years now to get Highway 190 restriped through downtown. Our best case scenario is to use the thermoplast product that they do, but that requires additional budgeting. When I last spoke to Jason last week, he had indicated that he wanted to just go ahead and restripe the lines with paint, but that would only last about 6 months. So in talking with him, he is basically awaiting what money they get from the legislature for the legislative session. And he said that downtown restriping with the thermoplast product is on his list. He said it's a top priority.
Okay.
I don't have that in writing, but he is the point person for all of the road maintenance striping and requests, and scheduling the teams to do that. So keep y'all updated on that as it progresses, and hopefully trying to get not only the streets striped, but the high visibility crosswalks redone and all of the directional arrows and signage that has faded away over the past 11 to 12 years when this last time it was done. We did get the bricks installed in River Park.
They look great, by the way.
Yes, people are very happy that they're there. We have a couple spots left, but we haven't really opened up the sales just quite yet for that. So something to put on our list. I will be leaving for Hammond's sister city trip to Jouarre Pontchartrain, France next week, and we'll be out through July 5th for a personal trip. I'm actually going to go to Sweden to visit Hammerdal, which is where Peter Hammond is from. But that is a personal trip of mine, and I did actually email the municipality that is in that area to try to make contact with them. I haven't heard back yet, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to show up and just.
Is there any does he have family, like descendants? It's still there?
I don't know. Hammerdal is very small. It's only a village of like 900 people. But the municipality that's there kind of covers a bigger area. So, so yes, in addition to being a very busy time, I'll also be taking some time off. So just wanted to kind of let you all know of that. In terms of business development, we've had several openings take place over the past couple of weeks, and there's a couple of things that are underway. We have a new retail location opening called Stable and Coop. It's a vintage retail shop, and she also will do alterations and sewing. She's in the process of getting her occupational license now. She did plan for a soft opening this week, but that will probably be moved until next week. So we're happy to see some of those developments that are kind of popping up. Bento actually officially opened. They have hours, so we're very excited about that. Flow and Glow is still under construction right next door. Update here for the 200 Hewitt Road location. I don't think it goes into Safari Quest location, or the Isabel's Pizza location, but we will have a pediatric occupational therapy clinic going over there. There's some construction happening right now. And there's probably one or two other things on here, but that kind of summarizes my report for the time being.
Okay.
All right. Nobody has any questions? We can go on to staff report.
I will keep mine very brief. Basically, I was out for 1 week on vacation since our last meeting, so and since I've been in the office, we've just been working on getting farmers market applications sorted, looking through those, scheduling some phone interviews for this week and next week, helping Dara deal with payments and stuff for Planet in the Park and Hammond Live. Also working on getting some of our stuff rebranded and ordered, like tablecloth and tent and things like that. And then working on mostly all of the Hot August applications and stuff and getting those ready for us to launch. And then handling some sponsorships that Devin has gotten us for Hammond Live as well, so.
As far as the applications, do we have any that we've already screened and know that for sure have passed the,
So we have
that'll be in the
This
next
is an
part?
item on that.
But I did want to
Okay.
mention, one thing that Ashley, she mentioned the merch and tablecloth and everything like that. We did start up orientations with Southeastern again. We do parent orientations every Wednesday, on campus with the Tangipahoa Chamber and Tangi Tourism. So it's about 10-minute time slot that we have to kind of pitch downtown, let them know, welcome them here. Well, the whole like welcome bandwagon type thing. So, we started that back up. We, because I will not be here for many of those, we're needing to work on developing a video of some sort that kind of is a placeholder for our pitch. We do have helping hands, like with the chamber and Tangi Tourism. They'll kind of give our spiel for us, but I did want to mention that as something that we have started and will continue.
All right. Next up.
Kayla had mentioned that it might be a better use of our time to have me email my report to you guys beforehand, since it's just kind of like metrics and whatnot.
You can touch on the hot points, though.
Oh, yes. People are very happy about Monster Mini Golf. People
Oh.
are lit about Monster Mini Golf. It did really well on Facebook. I'm like genuinely, I guess not surprised, but I'm really happy about it. So you can see the metrics for that. And that also did really good on Instagram. New episode did great on Instagram as well. So people want to know that new businesses are coming and opening in downtown. I think that's something important that we've been doing. We should definitely keep doing.
Wow, it
That
really,
keeps people going to our page.
Almost viral, huh? What's
Yeah, it
considered
did.
viral? Over 100,000 or something?
Yeah, I told you it did really good. Great and Grace did great too. I was really happy because I actually talked on that video. So
very good.
Okay.
And our open rate for emails are still really good. We're still within a good average, so even though we're down a little bit from the last time, it's good. Bounce rate's normal, so.
Nice.
All right. All right, next up, committee marketing. Kayla?
So, I canceled our meeting this month because we have a scheduled meeting with Antoine Marketing for our partnership to help us maximize our marketing reach and what we're doing with the DDD branding as far as eventing, SEO work. So Michelle and I have a meeting this Thursday. So once we have that meeting, we'll be able to bring back initiatives for our committee. We are going to be working a little bit about the retail week. That'll come up. That'll be our first hot topic that we need to work on. So until we have that meeting, I went ahead and tabled our committee meeting. So we weren't wasting those committee members' time.
Yep.
Till we have that meeting set up, so.
Okay. Events?
Or
Oh, no.
design.
Design, sorry.
Okay. We had to push our design committee meeting to Friday because Michelle and I were both out of town. I was out of town for the first time. We rescheduled it, and then we were both going to be out of town for the next time. So it'll be on Friday. So I have no report right now.
All right. Does anybody have any updates for Hillary for events? Did she share anything or is there?
Yeah, the last meeting, we kind of focused on the launch details for Hot August. We also, I'm trying to remember now. I need to look
Do
at
you
the
want me
agenda.
to? We talked
We-
about greener grounds.
Yeah, so we had explored looking at this, there's a grant for outdoor concert series that we were looking at to see if that could kind of help with our fundraising goal. for events, but it's looking like something that we're not really eligible to apply for. Devin Gabriel on our committee has been really helpful in securing sponsorships for Hammond Live in particular. And others have been helpful too in trying to spread the word for that and getting participation with our events. The discussion basically this has been on mostly all committee agendas, the discussion of the council's revision to amend the code of ordinances regarding alcoholic beverages in city parks. We'll also talk about that, but since that was specifically affecting the operation of our events, we had that discussion. Doing some prep for Hammond Live, which is this Friday. So encourage everyone to come out to that event. It's from 5 to 8.
Jupiter Flood opening up, and then Christine Alfonso and Peachy Peas, and then
Yes. So we are being weather aware to a degree, so we will keep everyone in the loop about that, but excited to have the first concert kickoff this Friday. We also looked at the Greener Grounds grant from Keep Louisiana Beautiful for Hot August, which would basically enhance the waste management component of the event in partnership with Keep Hammond Beautiful. Unfortunately, the scopes of work that we presented to the city with respect to that and a few other grant opportunities were not approved, so we will not be applying for that. And like I said, we spent our time kind of reviewing our launch for Hot August, and with the alcoholic beverages in city parks discussion kind of being the more prominent discussion that we've been having, that has a lot of implications for our events, but I'll kind of save an update for that once we get to that point in our meeting.
Okay, next up is Farmers Market, which is me. So we had a very full meeting there with some important topics to talk about. We do have a lot of our committee here today. So later on, we're going to address some things where if you guys want to come up, I'll give opportunity for input, but I just want to kind of fill everybody in. So, and one thing that we did not put on here on the agenda is a new business as far as the location of the farmers market. But I do want to give an update as far as what we spoke about. So the farmers market, everybody did a site visit previously. Meeting before, we had done a SWOT analysis of moving to the pavilion. Now that the mayor has closed the street, it's kind of pushed this even to be a little bit more of a where does the farmers market go? And a lot of the discussion was that the pavilion, really after looking at it and some of the challenges there, may not be the best option for a first place, but maybe more of a secondary option in inclement weather. Some of those reasons being bathrooms far away. Another one is space in general and needing to possibly take over some other space that we may not be able to do that. And but the overall consensus is that the people at the market are doing better when there is a layout where everybody is more able to shop around each other and not separated. So the discussion led to if we are not going to be able to close the street, which at this point, based on discussions with the mayor, we vocalized that we're beating a dead horse here. We're not going to get that. So so now we got to do with what we have. So we talked about basically a trial run, maybe a few weeks, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, to see how, if everybody moves to that center area of the parking lot, so that everybody's at least together over there, rather than being half in the railroad park and half over there.
Which center area of the parking lot?
Where across from Brady's.
Okay.
Yeah. So where everybody would try that out and just see how that works. That and then the other option would be to maybe try out still utilizing the railroad park, but then going on the other side of the railroad and taking that parking lot to where at least that, one of the issues is the danger of crossing the main highway, so at least you wouldn't have that. However, we're talking, it still kind of disjoints everybody. So the other big challenges that we'll have with either of these deals is the parking issue of having to navigate towing cars. Currently, every time the cars are towed, they're moved, and it's at the DDD's expense, which is a bill to us, which is not good. And it's also a management issue of being able to, of having to constantly call, tow trucks. We've gotten temporary signage that basically says towed at owner's expense that I believe we're going to be utilizing. Currently, the contract is with a certain tow company, so we're trying to find out how that's going to work. The other issue, as far as managing towing cars, is if it becomes towing at the owner's expense and the impound is a good bit away from the actual market, the time that it takes, somebody's gonna have to come out really early and start getting cars. So if you're not able to use more than one tow company or whatever, so there's kinks to be worked out. But for now, we're gonna continue as we have been doing, and we're gonna test out those spaces, and try and manage that. So I think going forward, after we test it out and kind of figure out what direction, I think we're gonna really have to communicate with the mayor where those problems that we have, and getting help, whether either they're gonna help us block off in advance earlier in the morning, or they're gonna get out there and help us do that. What is the solution, since we can't block off the street anymore, because that's gonna be a logistics issue.
So the pavilion's not an option because we can't fit everyone, correct?
So it's fitting everyone, and also the loading. There's kind of an issue with the way that it's designed to be able to load and fitting everybody under there.
Yeah.
So you need more space that we'd have to get
Right.
use of space that we don't have ownership of. So we have to get approval of that. And just a reminder, this pavilion came not as a farmer's market thing. It came as a, this is what we want to do. And then it so happened, everybody assumes, oh, you get in pavilion, you kind of, it's like the French market, you're going to get this covered thing. Well, it wasn't designed
Right.
with forethought for
I
that.
think there was a previous one designed for the farmer's market, and that never got
Mhm.
implemented, and then this was something totally separate,
Yeah.
not designed for that.
So, and we really need to, once we get a little more grounding of what the best secondary option, and one of those options, I think that's the point where we're gonna have to, probably as the board, come up with a list of needs and requests from the mayor's office to see where they're gonna help us implement, because at the end of the day, the decision was made by them to close down the street, so we need their assistance.
So
And
when does this trial run start of relocation?
I don't know, did we put a date on?
This
Okay.
Saturday?
So, I understand that the discussion was to basically move all the vendors into the parking mall this
Right.
Saturday. I am still waiting to hear from the city's electrician, about the capacity for that. So, working with Savannah, she'll be in the office tomorrow. We'll be able to see what that map kind of situation looks like. There is electricity there, for some of the more beefier setups. I think there will probably be some concerns if you have a beefier setup. But otherwise, we can fit, depending on how many people we have, like, I'd have to sit down and work with Savannah to see, if all the did y'all look at the map, if all the park vendors fit into the parking lot at the time of the meeting? Yeah. So yes, Savannah indicated that the desire was to put everyone into the parking lot today. I am just now coming back into the office from being out of town, so I haven't had a chance to touch base with her about it, other than trying to get the city electrician to come out and assess that capacity. So, vendors will be updated on that, as soon as possible, because I would need to.
I would like to ask a question. And I understand everybody says it's disjointed, but is this just a perception thing and a feelings thing? And don't get me wrong, I've offered my parking mall in front of my restaurant the whole time. Is it really that disjointed? Like, do you think that people aren't crossing the street?
So this is what.
I'm just asking,
so-
and
so
I'm
we
not
did it-
trying to pick a side.
So I've wondered that myself. We are getting
I
feedback.
feel like if I'm going to the farmer's market, I'm there.
Well, let me tell you why. So if somebody's getting gallons of milk on one side, and they just need their gallon of milk, is what they're coming for, every week or whatever, their eggs or whatever that is. Sometimes when people go get their gallon of milk and they happen to see a pastry over there and be like, oh, I kind of want that. If it's disjointed where there's some anchor places that may be bringing people, there's not that flow of everybody's working off of one another to get the sales, so they feel like sales are suffering. Now, feel or no, or,
Okay, I'm asking, because I mean, and hypothetically, I mean, I've offered my parking lot in front of the restaurant. I would be happy to have it. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just thinking logically, walking across the street shouldn't be that big of a deal. Hypothetically. But, I mean, you would think.
But you're saying when they're closer together, people might see something and buy more just because they see it, because it's right there next to them.
It's like impulse buying. Okay, I just. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about literally crossing over the street, but I mean, I'm asking from a business standpoint. Wh- Right. Right, I understand, that's why I asked the question.
yeah, and I mean, I think just a bit, knowledge of like, there's an art to merchandising, right? Like there's flow in a store,
Right.
and-
Totally understand it.
And I think it's like a bowling alley, and by the time you hear, you're like, oh, crap, do I want to carry this milk all the way to the other side of, I think that's probably a deal for some people.
Yeah, I get it.
Or is it- Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah, I just wanted, I mean, look, y'all can put it all in front of you.
So that's that. So we're gonna test those things out, but there's gonna be, once we get a better handle of what the better choice is, I think the next step is we're gonna have to go to the mayor and ask for some concessions and for them to help us implement, because it's just too much for the staff that we have and the new market manager that's coming in to be able to manage these cars and everything else. So there's gonna be some asks, so that's down the line. The next thing was, there was on the agenda, there were some vendors that were selling branded merch. So there was a decision made, and I'm just going to talk about how the discussion went in general. We'll discuss this a little bit further in new business, but I just want to give an overhaul to fill y'all in. So there was a, some vendors were selling branded merch, and to my understanding, from what I remember, it was 2 or 3. And the current guidelines state that what you sell has to be handmade and all this kind of stuff. There's really no place in the guidelines for the farmer's market for people to sell merch, as far as a separate, whether it's a bag or a t-shirt or whatever, there's nothing there. So the question was brought up, if we're gonna allow this, do we do a certain percentage of their business that allow to sell it, or, and that kind of stuff. And that conversation kind of went to, and there was also a good bit of people in the crowd as well, that went to, well, how many people are actually doing this, and is it a big percentage of their sales currently? And kind of the answer is, well, not a lot of people know it's not a big percentage. So is this something that we even want to add to a guideline if it's just a matter of a few people that may be not following a rule right now, and just tell them? Now, what I did not know, and I'm still not clear on, which we can talk about later, is were they told they can do it? Even though there's nothing there or whatever, but that can be a discussion down the line. But anyway, so push come to shove, we decided, well, rather than putting something else to manage, if it's not something that has become a a thing and not the direction of what the spirit of the market is, handmade items, you know, it could become a flea market, you know? You can start having keychains, but, you know, everybody starts doing that. What does that look like? Is that what y'all want to do? So we had a vote, and the vote went to, well, before it went, there was a discussion that said, well, do we want to grandfather in the people that are already doing it? And then a few people in the audience had said, well, wait, so you can say no, but then let some people do it? Like, it should be whatever. And then so it went to a vote, and I think it was 3 or 4 that said yes and 2 that abstained maybe. I don't remember the count. We can look at the minutes, but it passed to clear it. So, so that's what happened there. And then this progressed into an issue because maybe there were some things that we didn't discuss. We'll talk about that later. So, but that's the baseline of what we'll talk about later. So,
I think we'll reserve that time for later
Yes.
on, but let's just use
Yeah,
common sense.
yeah. Okay, so, and then the other main thing I think that was there was a merchant there that basically was doing an appeal, that they were no longer, they were basically expelled from the market, and it was pretty contentious, unfortunately. But they were found to not being, there was enough evidence that they weren't being quite so honest. And so the decision was to withhold the decision that they're no longer part of the market. So they did farm checks, things like that, and there was quite a bit of evidence for it to be held up. So those are the big 3 things, and then we'll discuss later. So, any questions? Okay. Chance?
So our meeting, we basically, our meeting was pretty much 2 topics, well, 3 topics. The Merchants Committee, we talked about getting behind the summer program to support retail businesses. All the merchants are behind it, and we're looking forward to working with the Marketing and Events Committee to help promote that. I'll reserve the rest of the conversation, which really went into the ordinance. There was a passionate conversation about that, which I'm sure we're going to talk about longer than I want to. And other than that, that's all the Merchants Committee talked about. We really want to get behind boosting the retail promotion for the summer, because I think they need it. We all need it in the summertime, but the retail needs it a lot.
All right, residential?
All right, we met again this month. We meet every other month. And as residents, I think their big focus is always seeing progress in the city. The good news is we had some trees planted, we had some garbage can liners installed, so we had some positive things to talk about this meeting, which was great. The other thing we talked about is something that's kind of an issue, not really an issue, but an opportunity for us to name neighborhoods. But I think the consensus on that was the amount of research that would have to go into that project. We don't have a budget for, which is one thing. And I don't think that anyone on our committee would have the time to do the amount of research that it takes. So we came up with a couple of alternatives, like maybe focusing on trees or cemeteries or something a little more simple than figuring out parameters of neighborhoods, which can be pretty extensive research. So Michelle, do you want to add anything to that? Because you were with us in that meeting. So, but I think overall, the consensus is that, yeah, we'd love to do something like that, but I don't think we either have the budget for it or no one has the time to dedicate to doing a project of that scope, if you will. So.
Yeah, well, just to clarify, they do have a budget set aside for their projects, but I didn't think that in order to prioritize the scale that they were initially thinking, that would be a little bit more extensive. So yeah, paring it down and focusing on our historic neighborhoods as a means of content, whether it's blog posts, scavenger hunt, things that are about Hammond's history, and getting people to know about our historic neighborhoods and doing some of that research, but not necessarily making a full-fledged, it started with someone wanting to put a sign in front of a neighborhood, and it's like, well, for us to put a sign in front of a neighborhood, you gotta really make sure that you know what it's called. And it would probably have to be adopted by the city through ordinance, so just kind of reviewing that, we are taking kind of a different approach.
All right, old business, discussion of part-time farmer's market manager position.
Is this how many resumes we got?
Like 40, huh?
Wow,
Is it more than 40?
It's actually 51.
that's,
There's one that I didn't add
Amazing.
in that we got in today, but that's, so we did get one more in today.
Wow.
Yeah.
okay.
And I am working on setting up phone interviews with some of those people on the list, so.
We only have about 12 when I went through for phone interviews, so there was a,
It was about 20, actually.
Oh,
I
20,
counted them.
so, yeah, we gotta weed it down quite a bit.
I'll post it on Indeed.
Yeah.
What is the different colors? What did you say the highlights meant?
We highlighted the people who were the ones that were gonna do phone interviews. I separately highlighted them for Michelle specifically, so like my recommendation of a few
Okay.
people, and then she went through all of them today and highlighted people. Well, I need like a difference of color in order for me to like my brain to work, so I had to go through and highlight them, but she bolded them. So a few have already responded, and I've already set up probably about 3 or 4 interviews. And then I'll work on the rest tomorrow for whoever else has
So-
responded since.
Just as a general comment, in my opinion, if you have, I don't know if you need to phone interview 20 people, but that's my opinion. This is just me throwing out there. Do y'all think 20 phone interviews, or do you think it should be weeded based on resume to? That's that problem. Yeah.
Well, I think it depends on how good they are.
And then 3 final.
Your
Well-
initial group that you like off the resume, and then if you don't have good candidates, then maybe you have those options. But 20 seems a lot for phone interviews. That's
Well,
a
so
lot.
I'll just say, basically, the process that we'll kind of take is like a basic checklist. So a phone interview could very well be only 5 minutes.
Okay.
And it's just basically kind of like, do you meet by looking at a scan and looking at the requirements, asking them a little bit more specifically about each of those. If it's not a good fit, then we just kind of move on. We have a more thorough phone interview process for these, higher up kind of candidates here. So,
Okay, I was just want to manage y'all time, because I know you're busy.
Right.
And I go by the 80-20 rule with most things, and 20% of that list would be about 10 people, not 20. But I mean, if you have time, you think it's be quick, but, sometimes you can review those resumes and cut them. And maybe have your second ones that you would do if the phone interviews didn't go well, I don't
Yeah.
know. But, okay.
Yeah, I know one of these applicants pretty well, so.
All right, new business.
Yep, new business discussion of city council's revision to amend the code of ordinances regarding booze in the parks, in city parks.
So this has been a topic of discussion for several weeks now. The ordinance was introduced at the May 24th meeting or 27th meeting. And basically what the revision does is it eliminates the council and the administration's ability to provide a special event waiver for alcohol to be consumed in parks. That directly affects not only our events, but other event organizers in downtown. As a response to that, we hosted a public hearing on June 3rd. Councilman Andrews, Councilwoman Gonzalez, the mayor, and city administrator were present for that discussion. And while the takeaways from that are, not super tactile, I think that the discussion that we had was basically around, this revision, is not really addressing some of the concerns that are coming to the forefront. And that has been the position of us as a downtown development district of, if we're looking at safety, if we're looking at responsible alcohol consumption, there are a lot of other ways that we need to be looking at this issue as a community that ensures safety. It was included on the council agenda last night. I was present and did speak on it. It was tabled, so the final adoption did not take place. It's been tabled until June 24th. But I did state that we would like to see an exemption at least for the downtown parks located within the downtown development district, if they choose to move forward with it. And ultimately, like I said, it just kind of is in a holding pattern right now. So, I will be out of town on the 24th, but I do think that there will be a call to action for us to have a physical presence there to ensure that the way that it is currently written, the revision that is there, it does not pass as is. An additional response potentially to the meeting that we had on the June 3rd was ordinance was introduced to prohibit under 21 entering into bars. And so there was some discussion about that at the council meeting last night. So, you know, just kind of other things as they kind of come up. We're trying to see how it affects downtown. There were several downtown bar owners that spoke in opposition of that policy change. So I think the role of the downtown development district is to you know, take in the concerns and see, you know, as a community, really how are we addressing this? And the conversation kind of boils down to what are the existing laws, what are the existing rules that need to be enforced, and what is the enforcement body is at play? How does that actually occur and happen? So it seems that we still have some work to do in this area to, one, meet everyone in the middle of what the issue is, but two, see what an appropriate course of action moving forward is. So that's just kind of an update on all of that.
So what was the temperature of the council members in regards to both of the ordinances last night?
For the parks ordinance, none of them spoke on that, but there was pretty clear opposition for entering bars at 21.
And was there,
Wait, like,
I would say they voted on the introduction of the ordinance, but there was discussion, like Councilman Leon, you know, was basically saying that, you know, is this the only way that we can curtail this related to underage drinking and having a safe environment for that. But the introduction of the ordinance does not mean that it is something that's enforceable. That's like the first step in the process.
well, it's not gonna be enforced anyway. But
well, that's my question. Was anyone from the police department
No.
present?
No.
no. So I would be happy to state on the record, and as most of you have heard from me before, we can make all the laws we want. If they're not going to be enforced, then what are we doing? We're just wasting our time discussing these facts. So we can make it illegal to drink in the parks. We can make it illegal for 18. I'm born and raised here. I've been able to get into a bar since I was 15 years old. I didn't cause trouble because that was the rules. I know it's a different world now. If the law is not going to be enforced, then why are we making the law? I just wanted to put that on public record.
And that would be an excellent item to put on the city council's public record on the 24th.
I'll see if I can make it.
Yes, because I think that I understand the desire to try to create a safer community.
Totally for it.
Yes.
Totally
but
for it. I think
does
that
seem
we
that we're not talking about the same issue.
I think that there's already laws in place for when it comes to this under 21 thing. The ATC can be involved. The city also has access to grants where they are allowed to go into bars undercover or in plain clothes and to enforce the laws that are in place. And there are state laws that are in place for people that hold liquor license, like myself, that you get a fine for this amount, you get fined for this amount, or for this time, and then your liquor license gets revoked. That's how the problem gets eliminated, by enforcing the laws that are already in place, instead of taking away the rights of people that actually follow the law. There are a lot of 18-year-olds that can own businesses that might want to go shoot a game of pool at 11 o'clock at night that don't cause problems. I mean, I'm not trying to get in that conversation, but they can own a business at 18. But it's just, you know,
there's a lot of
we're gonna have a
non-issues that
knee-jerk
we're spending our
reaction,
time
we're gonna have a knee-jerk reaction to somebody's opinion in regards to cover charges and things like that.
Right.
I mean, it makes no sense to me. Enforce the laws that are in place instead of making new laws that aren't gonna be enforced. Also for the record.
So, like I said, Tuesday, June 24th, as the agenda comes out, hours in advance, you know, he said it was tabled to the 24th, so we would want to have a presence there to just ensure that, you know, we know what is going to be a part of the discussion.
I'll be out of town that evening, but if anyone else can go, I would encourage it. All right.
Next, discussion of vendors selling branded promotional items at the Hammond Farmers Market. So, this is going back to what I had just discussed earlier. So, I don't know if there's anything more for me to say, because I kind of covered what happened. And you guys are here, so I'll let you speak. If you want to go first, just state your name and.
Shannon Tinker, I'm the chairperson for the market committee. John kind of gave some of the details, so I'm not going to go over everything, but I do want to clarify some of what took place, as well as take this opportunity to express a couple grievances that the committee members have expressed to me. I've talked to the majority of them since this, and just want to make sure that going forward, when we have an issue like this, we're all on the same page and we can handle it better, because this was not handled right in multiple ways. First off, we had the agenda, the item on the agenda prior to the meeting. All vendors were able to be there. There were several vendors in attendance, probably 8 to 9 if I recall correctly. So when the item came up for the branded items, John, I think it was you that made the comment about would we want this to be a flea market. And the consensus in the room was, hey, we're better off as a farmer's market if we kind of get away from this kind of stuff of buying something and reselling something rather than something that's made or grown, which is the spirit of the market. So when we voted on this, we went with the information we had on hand. Did not know until you mentioned a while ago that there was a vendor that had permission to do this outside of the guidelines. Market manager.
And I will say, that's still an assumption. I'm not certain of that. That was posted by that vendor that they were given permission, so I don't know.
That brings me to my second issue, and Chance, I'm so glad we came right behind what you just had to say. Because my next issue that I have personally is that we voted on this with the information we had. We made a decision, and then immediately at the end of the market, we get an email saying that we know y'all voted on this, but we're not going to uphold it. Just don't think that's the way it should be done. I think, first of all, I believe the vendor in question, who is here, and I have no issue with Sinagra Dairy or Miles. My whole purpose of this is I don't want division in the market because that's just going to mess it up for everybody. I want everybody to get along, everybody to be on the same page. I believe that what happened and the way it happened was totally opposite of that. So rather than the vendor coming to us committee members on the side and saying, hey, y'all voted on this, y'all didn't realize what it's doing to my business or my business model, or hey, I've invested some money in this and this is really going to hurt me. And we could have had that conversation. Instead, it was posted on Facebook. Then it was brought to Channel 17. So thousands of posts later, the committee looks like we're the big bad guy who's not taking care of the vendors, what we're supposed to be doing. We're all volunteering for this. We all have so many other irons in the fire that don't really have time to do it. But I do it because we're in the committee and somebody's got to step up and try to help guide things along. So the fact that, why do we make a ruling if it turns around and gets shot down and not honored is offensive to me. It's disrespectful. We had one vendor, one committee member resign for that reason in particular already, and several voiced that they would do the same. We have a really good committee. We've been making a lot of good progress. I know John reports back to y'all what we're doing. I think the market is a very big challenge right now because it has grown exponentially. And we're trying to just make sure that we work with the market manager to keep things flowing right. And, but, you know, this item should have been, and I will admit, we most likely didn't make the right decision, but we made the best decision based on what the information we had available to us that day and the vendors that were there that day. There was not even close. It was a very strong consensus on the things that we voted on. So, but to have that disregarded was offensive and disrespectful. And then the way, you know, I think if somebody has an issue, just like if somebody in the downtown development district has an issue with something y'all ruled on, wouldn't y'all want them to come to you and say, hey, put this on the agenda next month, let's get this straight because I don't think it's right. That's the way it's supposed to work. It's the way it's designed to work. It didn't work that way. And if something doesn't change on it, we're not gonna have a farmer's market committee because no vendors are gonna wanna be on it. So I just felt like I need to get up and express the consensus of the committee members and ask for any support that you guys can give us in going forward, that we kind of get this stuff fixed and do it right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Since I'm a little in the dark, can we address what topic?
Yes.
This is for-
Can you
Yeah.
help us a little
Yeah.
bit with the what was the consensus?
I wasn't involved, I'm sorry.
I mean,
But I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so real quick too, I just want to let y'all know that there's a clear understanding since this happened that there was a lot of pieces that this is a situation that could have been handled better on multiple places, and that's why we have a line item on a code of conduct and policy going forward on this agenda. You know, so I just want to let y'all know this is already understood that we're going to be working on fixing this because
Yeah,
it
can we,
did not work out. So
but can we
Yeah.
hear what the
They need
consensus?
Yeah.
and the-
I'd just like to hear.
We
what
would
you
like
said.
to know.
She has it written. You want her to read it?
Andre,
you want to come up first since you have it written out?
All right, I mean, we just like to be brought into the light.
So, my name is Andre Anderson, and I am the artisan seed for the Hammond Farmers Market Committee. And I want to mimic a lot what Shannon said, but I also got a lot more facts written down of what exactly happened. So I wrote a statement because I'm very nervous public speaking.
You're doing
can you
fine.
speak into that mic a little bit though? So sorry, yeah.
Is that better?
I guess, I don't even know if it's on, but I can't hear, but it's good. Keep going.
All right, I am the artisan seat for the Hammond Farmers and Artisan Market Committee that added the actual discussion of promotional items to the agenda. The agenda is always mailed to all vendors in a timely manner before the meeting, plus it is public. Our meetings are also public, and if a vendor cannot attend but would like to make a statement, the category seat or the market manager will gladly read it for them. Also, our meeting minutes and all of that is also posted public. The reason I added this to the agenda was to clarify the percentage allowed promotional items for all vendors to sell because of our prefabrication restrictions. An artisan vendor had requested to sell some items that did not qualify due to this prefabrication rule and was originally told no. As her clients were requesting these items, she asked us to revisit. One of those products had her logo engraved on that product. The market manager and I felt it could be allowed as promotional since a few other vendors already were allowed to sell promotional items, which they were approved to do so on a case-by-case basis, but only at a small percentage, we told the specific vendor. So this is why the discussion came up. I honestly thought this was a non-issue. The committee would just decide what percentage it was to be added to the guidelines, so all of our vendors could easily see what was allowed. My background is actually in design and branding, and I have no issue with a small amount of promotional items to be allowed and sold if it's neatly displayed on your table. After much discussion, the committee did not agree for many various reasons. A motion was made to allow 0% of promotional items to be sold at our market, and was passed, not unanimously, but almost unanimously. I was the only one that didn't say yes. However, more discussion happened, including many more public comments, and our committee listened.
Please know exemptions were discussed because those vendors were currently approved, and it was frowned upon by those public comments. They were very, upset about that you're gonna say they can, but we can't. So with many new thoughts to consider, I made a motion to overturn the original 0% and instead to be a case-by-case basis. Please note there were more yes votes than no votes and abstains, but it did not pass as a majority was not met. So there was not it was not personal or against a particular vendor. It was not motivated by evil intentions. Public comments were made, listened to, and discussions were had before those motions were made and voted on. Our board does not know what it doesn't know. We did not know that Sinagra Dairy, and I have nothing against them, I love them. But we didn't know that they had spent the amount that they did for their market promotional items. I promise we would have taken that into consideration if we did. The day after our meeting, I spoke with Miles from Sinagra Dairy, and we discussed what had happened and an appeal. He said he had to be creative until the next meeting. I love creativity, I'm the artisan seat. When I saw his post the morning of the market, I thought it was actually a clever way to work around the new rule. However, that post turned really dark and very hateful very fast. After our committee ruling was changed, without even talking to this committee, the post continued with an off with their heads mob mentality. I spoke with Miles as a friend after the market, and he explained his intentions wasn't to bash the market or the committee, but to get the rule change, which he accomplished. He said he might even make a post stating those intentions. I told him I would appreciate that very much. That simple gesture could have shut down that hatred and misinformation. But the choice was made not to do so. I would never do anything to intentionally hurt another vendor, local business, local farm, or our market. I'm positive neither would any of my fellow committee members. I'm just very disappointed in the entire situation. Our board, which is fairly new with many different personalities and perspectives, 4 actually vendors at the market, has worked really hard to listen and be fair with our vendors. We fight for them. That was the purpose the committee was made. So the vendors had a voice. We are the voice to you guys at the DDD. The guidelines were written before our committee was created. We approved them, and we have worked tirelessly to address any issues that have come to our attention. We want to serve our market community. We've always revisited rulings if it affected a vendor and tried our best to keep the market's integrity and make that vendor happy as well. We've made compromises, clarified guidelines, and made guideline changes. Again, sometimes it takes till the next meeting to discuss further as we don't know what we don't know. It was always the plan to revisit the sale of promotional items, even before the social media hatred and the DDD became involved. So that's it.
Thank you. That was very thorough. Thank you.
She'll still need to be brought up to speed.
I'm pretty sure I got it.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Savannah Phillips. I work with the Downtown Development District as the Hammond Farmers and Artisans Market up until the end of this month. I am just going to kind of reflect what Andrea said about the meeting. She did add this item on the agenda because we were already allowing promotional items such as hats, t-shirts, etc. On a case-by-case basis, but it was not officially in the guidelines. We both felt that in fairness for all and transparency and to have something tangible for the vendors to fall back upon, it needed to be written into the guidelines since we were already doing it. I think promotional items are a great way for our farmers and our small businesses to diversify their income. And as I said at the Farmers Market Committee meeting, vendors or customers don't come to the market to buy the t-shirt. They come to buy the produce and the milk and the coffee. They get the t-shirt because they want to show their support and their love for downtown local businesses. But after that agenda item was brought up during the meeting, to try to write in to allow a sale of a percentage of items to be promotional, such as those hats and t-shirts that we just talked about, it seemed that people were afraid that the committee was afraid that the promotional items would be too much, that they would overtake the market, that it would be more of a flea market than a farmer's market. There would be key change hats. There would be all this kind of miscellaneous regalia out here. Whereas I feel that the percentage clause in there would help to dissuade that. And again, we only had 4 vendors, off the top of my head that I know, that were previously approved to sell their promotional items. So they were approved, they submit product requests to have these items, they were approved, they brought the t-shirts, the hats, and Rosie Acres Candle Co. is the most recent with her branded cup holder. So I just want to clarify that. I think the aftermath of the market committee was, did kind of blow up, which is why we're talking about it here. I do think proper protocol should have been followed, in bringing it to the committee's attention and placing it as an item on the agenda to try to get an exemption or an appeal. And obviously that didn't happen, so.
Can I make this comment? Wait, I just want to make a comment real quick. I just want to thank the 2 of you from the committee and Savannah as well who stood up to speak. We appreciate your time and we know you're volunteering, and I understand your frustration with the committee. You made the best decision you could with the information you had at the time. So I just want to, for the record, thank you all for the work that the entire committee has done.
Yeah, I just have one technical question. So when we talk about percentages, are we talking about percentages of your sales and dollars? Or are you talking about percentages of SKUs that are represented of your product at the market?
It should be.
I'm a business person.
It
I
should
need
be
clarification
SKUs.
for things like this.
So we were saying the percentage of space that the item takes up on your table.
It should be SKUs.
I'm not sure what.
Well, an
I
item.
apologize.
I
So
know.
if you've got
It
one
needs to be an
item you
item.
sell to everybody, then you should have one, that would be 50% if you had one promotional item.
And I,
50%.
and I just want to, since I was a vote in
What
this.
what is it on the books right now?
So right now.
Or there's nothing,
Okay, so this is where my confusion in this discussion, and it honestly could be, I'm ADD and I might have missed it. But I did not realize that, I guess I didn't realize that people were actually approved. I thought this was popping up with a few people in the market. Yeah. So I didn't even know this would be approved, and I just don't understand how we're approving stuff that the guidelines clearly don't allow. So I thought it was an addition of talking about an addition of something that was never allowed to begin with. So that's where I came from, the standpoint of, if this is a no issue and there's only a few people not following a guideline, just tell them not to do it and move on. That way you don't have to police, is it this much on your table, is it this, whatever. And then further discussion, I think there's some other ways for these, which our marketing connoisseur over here had mentioned to me, that could be options to talk about. But if these vendors have an online presence and they have a following, you could, get the sales online and let them pick up at the market, but not have an actual booth.
Transaction doesn't happen at the market.
So there's maybe some options that could be talked about.
Yeah, that would have been a loophole for Saturday.
Yeah.
Post them, pre-sell them, let them pick up at the market.
so-
So it's not a part of merch being sold nor taking up
And then,
SKU space.
and then some other clarity, and I'm just saying how this went down as far as the post. 2 things that I just want to be sure of. Was the vendor asked to remove his post and chose not to?
I asked for the post to be removed.
Okay.
It's here.
Yeah, no, that's,
speak
I just, yeah, I was asking from the, I didn't, if they did. And then the other, yeah, you can come up. Yeah, sure. If you're done, yeah.
Called, which I
Yeah.
appreciated, and asked, and I felt like that would have been me saying like, I regretted saying, or that I was wrong or something, which I didn't think I was, which I wrote a few things. So, Savannah, I'm sorry. Anyway, yes, I said no, because I felt like that would be me saying that I was wrong and like saying like I regretted it or something. I wrote a couple things about, yes, the comments got out of hand, but I don't think anything that I said was not appropriate.
Well,
The final vote was that we have no merchandise?
Yes. That's what
No marketing merchandise for our.
That was the
it wasn't a vote.
committee.
Final decision.
It's just that we're not adding this to a policy.
Yeah.
Just, it wasn't like a no, you can't have. It's like, we're not going to add a policy that there's no.
It's not in there now, and so it was not going to be added to allow.
It was kind of a violated policy that was being approved that we weren't aware of, honestly.
like,
So-
it
You know, if
can't
you're-
be approved if it's not a policy.
Right.
So they just, I mean,
Well, so the policy is that you can't sell.
Well, there's no policy.
No, there is. The policy, if you read the market guidelines, is that you
Okay.
cannot sell items that are not handmade.
Okay,
Okay, and-
so we
Or
approve
handcrafted.
some.
Yeah.
But I just
Yeah.
want to make a comment.
The current guidelines state that no items that are prefabricated are allowed to be sold at the market up to 25%. So technically, if you buy a T-shirt and resell it, then that's not allowed. But if you buy like a box that you're gonna put something in, then that's fine. So long as no more than 25% of whatever it is prefabricated,
Then you can make it work. Got it.
then you can make it work.
What is the consensus of the committee? It goes back to the question, what would the committee like to see happen? I would like for him to answer that, please.
The committee would like to be taken out of it. The committee would like to see the guidelines that are there be done. If somebody needs something changed, and let us know, and we'll look at it and address it.
But does committee, what does committee feel about promotional items?
I think the
Like-
committee was not really against it.
Yeah,
It was just the fact that it was being made like it was gonna get out of hand.
correct.
And so
Just
that's where
needs
it
to be
went.
some guidelines put in place
And-
for promotional activity.
If somebody wants, if somebody feels strongly enough, there needs to be a proposal
Right.
to do
That's the
that.
whole point of us getting together and
Yes.
once a month and doing these things. But,
Let's do it.
Miles, you said if you were taking it down, it would have been like you were admitting you did wrong. You said something wrong. You didn't say anything wrong in your post.
25%,
The fact that you made the post was wrong.
25% promotional.
That was not the proper media, not the proper way to submit that.
25.
That's what caused the problem, was that it was on social media and not brought to the committee. And
Let's knock this one
Yep,
out.
and the comment specifically was, it was a silly decision. And this is what I want to say about that, and then definitely come up here, because I know that you have reasons behind it, and I'm not discounting that you do. But at the end of the day, you are selling in a market that is supporting you in your sales. And it's kind of like if I work for somebody and I go, you know what, to the public, my boss is such a jerk. Yeah, da, 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 da. Or you're right, your boss is silly. My boss is silly. My boss is silly. This is such a dumb thing that that's not a good look for everybody as a whole, as a team. So it just wasn't handled appropriately, but anyway, don't.
I guess it's clear now that I'm Miles Sinagra. I'm the culprit of the post.
Didn't figure that out.
So I think it's apparent from the caption, though, of my post, and if you know me, but I'd like to reiterate that I never meant any harm and never will mean any harm to the Hammond Farmers Market. Unfortunately, however, I've been accused from various vendors and market committee members of bashing the market, dragging it through the mud. One vendor told me that it took food out of children's mouths this week due to my post causing vendors to lose business. I feel like I've been attacked personally for my post on Saturday when I called a rule silly. I didn't call the member silly like you said your boss. I called a rule, very different in my opinion, a rule silly and ridiculous. I didn't and would never attack someone's character. I was simply calling out what I thought was bad policy, not a bad person. It seems that most of the people's anger originated from the comments on my post and not anything I said myself. So I ask that you take up your anger or frustration with the author of the comment that you found issue with and not me. In just a matter of a couple hours, my post from Saturday morning had nearly 250,000 views and hundreds of comments. And I, by no means, feel like I should be held responsible for those comments, many of which I've yet to read, even though that seems to be the driving force of everyone's anger. And yes, you mentioned someone said it was taken to the local news. I did not take anything to the local news. They took it. Like, I didn't go to them and ask them. They just took it and said controversy or whatever, which fueled the fire. I believe it was out of a love for and loyalty to the market as a whole that I wanted to call out what I thought was a bad decision on the part of the committee. I don't want to see the committee make bad decisions that negatively impact the market. The easiest thing for me to have done was just leave and go to another market. In fact, I got a courtesy call from someone Thursday night informing me of the decision that had been made and told them this may just be the straw that broke the camel's back for me staying at the market. Now, the thing is, I don't want to leave the Hammond market and go to another one. I have a loyalty to the Hammond market as a whole. Because of this, I did what I thought was the harder thing and chose to publicly bring to light two things. First, what I believed was a bad policy decision on part of the committee, and second, to try to highlight the rashness with which this new policy was adopted and implemented. I had been approved, which, I don't know, approved, it seems, to sell the bags and shirts. So the bags I bought from Romano Promotions in downtown. And the t-shirts were designed by lovely Alana's Graphics, also a downtown business. And I've been approved to sell these things for months, and the bags since May of 2024 is how long I've been selling these insulated bags. I got a delivery of 150 new insulated bags to sell at the market on Friday, which is also the day I got an email from Savannah notifying me that I'm no longer allowed to bring these items to the market to sell. So this was like what was going through my head. Thursday evening, decision made by the committee. Friday, I was formally notified by the manager of the new policy. Saturday, policy goes into effect, preventing me from selling these things I had been approved to sell for 13 months. I believe my post Saturday accomplished those two goals. I think it showed that it was a silly rule that was adopted, and I also think it brought attention to the fact that I think the committee, if overturning something that had already been approved, needs to provide vendors 30, 60, 90 days notice if it was something that had been approved and that's changing. And I emailed the market email adding these agenda items to the July meeting. To close, I know some of you disagree with the way I handled this, and I get that, but if I had not done what I did, I don't think we'd be here today, and I don't think we'd be discussing these policy and procedures of the committee. And you may disagree with me on this as well, but I'm confident what will end up coming of this will end up being good and benefit the market. Thank you. Any questions? Cool.
So I'm Margaret Feckety. I sit on the Hammond Farmers Market Committee. I am the farmer representative. I did personally ask Miles to take the post down, and he said no, he refused. I agree, his post was not negative towards the committee per se, but it also wasn't complete. It didn't say, hey, I was aware of this on the agenda, and I chose not to go to the meeting and speak my voice then. So the post looks very ugly just because he didn't give all the information. And if he had taken the post down, the comments would have disappeared. If the comments are the problem, then just take it down. And still, we don't have a post saying how great the Hammond Farmers Market Committee is, or not the committee, the market themselves. I mean, how long have we had a market? A long time. And we've withstood a whole lot of things, and never, I mean, when I spoke to him personally, he said he felt targeted because he said we all knew that he had these bags. Not true. We didn't know this. It was stated after the first vote, and I didn't know what was going on Saturday because I was working, and I was selling vegetables. And about 10 o'clock, they said, look at Facebook. And I looked up from my phone and I said, you have got to be kidding me. I was exhausted from the market, and I was mentally exhausted from all of the other things. So, after the market. So, I feel like it was a jab at the committee, and it made the market look bad. I know he has no control over the comments, but just removing the post, which is still up today, would have helped.
Thank you.
My name is Denise Austin, 47442 Monticello Drive in Hammond. Good afternoon, members of the board, fellow vendors, staff, and public. My name is Denise Austin, and I come before you today not only as a dedicated vendor at the farmers market for at least 11 years, but as someone who truly believes in the value it brings to our town. Week after week, the market offers more than just fresh produce and handmade goods. It aims to cultivate community, support local businesses, and fosters connections that go far beyond financial transactions. For these reasons, I am deeply disappointed and disheartened by recent social media posts by another vendor who chose to publicly disparage the market, the committee, and by extension, those who work hard to uphold its reputation. These comments didn't criticize policy or express concerns. They were personal, inflammatory, and undermined the integrity of the market as a whole. This is not acceptable behavior at our market or in our town. Let me be clear, feedback and dialogue are always welcome. Disagreements are natural in any collaborative space, but there's a clear necessary difference between constructive criticism and verbal attacks. When issues arise, we should be turning towards each other, not against each other, especially in public forums where perception becomes reality for those who don't know the full story. The agenda for our committee meetings, as we said, are always public knowledge and anyone's welcome to join in. We all have concerns, but there are appropriate channels to express them, starting with open, respectful conversation via committee involvement, market leadership, or the board. What's never appropriate is taking grievances public in a way that damages reputation, undermines trust, and discourages customers from supporting our small businesses. Nevertheless, the damage from these posts is not limited to hurt feelings. These words rippled outward, affecting vendor morale, deterring potential customers, and ultimately harming the trust and goodwill that the market has worked so hard to build. Many of us rely on this market not only as a source of income, but as a place where we feel seen, supported, and valued. Given that the post is still public to the community as of these comments, the content of said post continues to divide our community. I respectfully ask the board to consider addressing this issue as an urgent matter. Our code of conduct should not reflect just how we behave on site, but also how we represent the market as ambassadors of the community, online and off. Free speech is a right, yes, but with that comes responsibility, especially when representing a shared space that serves the public. And to the vendors who choose to speak negatively of the committee on a public platform, you have every right to that opinion, but as a participant in a shared space, I invite you to have a responsibility to be a part of solutions and unity going forward rather than sowing seeds of division. In closing, let's not allow negativity to overshadow the hard work of so many. Let's reaffirm the standards of respect and professionalism that allow this market to thrive. And most importantly, let's remind each other through words and actions that we're all in this together. Thank you for time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, me again. Savannah Phillips, Farmers Market Manager. I work with the Downtown Development District. I do want to say that I think everyone here, everyone who goes to the market, all of our customers, all of our vendors, especially our committee members, have good intentions for the farmers market. The farmers market is very dear to downtown, specifically my heart, obviously. And I do care deeply for each of the people that I work with and their businesses that they run. I think Miles's intentions were good when he posted this post. He is looking after the welfare of his business. I don't think he meant to disparage the market in any way. Where it really did take off was in the comments. And like Denise said, I agree, with social media does come a great deal of responsibility. And while the comments may not have been under Miles's control, I do think he could have disabled the comments at the very least to help kind of quench this fire. All in all, I think a lot of this could have been avoided. I've been talking to some of the vendors about what's happened over this past week and this Saturday, and a few suggestions have been made. One of which is that during market committee meetings, should a motion be brought up, since the committee members, vendor chairs, are there to represent their vendor categories, if a motion is brought up one meeting, then we should table it until the next meeting, go talk to the vendors of our category, and then return the following meeting to then vote and pass the motion after the discussion has been had with the committee members you represent. I'm not sure if that will actually work, but that was a suggestion that was made. I also, kind of going off of what Shannon had to say at the beginning of this meeting, I do want to clarify the reach of the committee. And when it is important for the Downtown Development District and the market manager to step in, such as in situations like this where things are getting out of hand, and when the committee members and their vote is validated, which I think is also important since it is a governing body of the farmers market. The committee is in place so that the community and the vendors do have a say with how the market is run.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything to?
No. I would like to say something. So I think we can all recognize that the situation that took place is in no way a representation of what anyone here wants for the market, for our community, for our vendors, for our customers, for the downtown development district, for the entity of the farmers market. I guess to explain what took place from my perspective, and recognizing that, as the director of the downtown development district, as the supervisor of the farmers market manager, and as a prior market manager myself, when I got the call from Savannah on Saturday morning, it was my first notification that the committee had made a decision, and that Savannah subsequently began the implementation of that decision with affected market vendors. And the topic at hand was that Action News 17 was about to share a post. I was taking in a lot of different things at one time, and ultimately feeling a lot of regrets about not being here at the meeting on Thursday, to ultimately support the committee in having that discussion. I know in all of those roles that I've held and that I continue to hold, it is my responsibility to ensure that our organizational structure supports collaboration and feedback for the work that we do. And with the committee structures as it stands, I think that the challenges that we have within that is usually the role that I serve in those spaces is to say, if we're going to say 100% no or 100% yes to anything, are we considering all of the nuance? Are we considering the how something will be implemented, other implementations, other things that will take place as a result of a decision? In this role, whether it be for the farmers market or any other capacity, it is very hard to say 100% no to something. Very challenging. You all know that in your role as committee members. You all know that in your role as board members, because there is always nuance. And I think I know that I was not there at that meeting. I wish I could have been, to be able to provide some of the additional direction that I can see and guidance that is needed because of the significant decisions that the committee has in front of them as it relates to a growing market. So I take responsibility for this, and in my goal and my response, at least publicly on those 2 social media posts from the representation of the market, was how can this how can the reputation of both the market and the downtown development district and the reputation not further be harmed? I did ask Miles to take the post down. Ultimately, that did not take place. But in recognizing that in the market guidelines and within the scope of my role, I did make a decision to publicly state that we would not be implementing it at this time, and provide communication for the appropriate venues for this to be discussed further, so that there can be further discussion about it. Given the heightened public attention to this issue, I think we can all say hindsight is 20/20. I don't know what the perfect response would have been. I recognize that a course of action that would support the committee's decision in a future special meeting to address an appeal would have been a stronger position for me to take in posting that. However, like I said, in the interest of recognizing and identifying that the basis of how this decision was made, like you said, was made with the information that you had at the time. And in these committee settings, before a decision is made, that is the type of discussion that needs to take place. And like I said, all the things that have ensued from that point, I understand that this is not where this stops. I understand that my role within this organization and as the market sits underneath the umbrella of the Downtown Development District, that this is something that we'll have to continue to work through. And establishing clear supports for our committees so that there's more confidence in how decisions can be made and how they are implemented. You know, I recognize that it basically all falls on me as the director of this organization. If our committee members, if our staff, if our board of directors do not have what they need to make a decision should not be made. And in few words, on the post that I made from the farmers market on those two separate social media posts was a means to quell that as much as possible. It wasn't perfect. It is not meant to devalue the contributions of the committee. But like I said, from the basis of how the decision was made, and recognizing that the next steps for how that decision would kind of move forward, like I said, I was exercising my ability in the way that I thought was appropriate at the time and trying to, like I said, deliver an opportunity for future discussion as it relates to it. I do believe that as we move forward in this, with the committee being a part of it, is everything from, the extensive guideline revisions that Savannah is taking in and concerns she's taking in from vendors, that a committee may not be the best, may not have all that it needs to be successful in doing that. And recognizing that the market underneath the direction of the Downtown Development District, it needs more support than it has ever had. It has experienced growth, and I think that we have been getting by with making do with a part-time manager and coasting along with issues as they come up with the committee structure as it stands. But with the growth that we've been experiencing, I think that there's a bigger need to have a strategic plan as it relates to the market. That, with more of a, I guess, scrappy way that we've been doing things to try to address things as they kind of come up, it's, these issues aren't necessarily something that are unique to our market. They may not be unique to, there's other ways that we can look at these things so that it's less about an opinion and it's more best practices based of how the market is structured and how it plans to move forward. So I say all of that to say is I want to communicate the significance of this situation as it relates to the market's reputation, and the morale that has been diminished between our vendors and our first and foremost, our committee members. What you have
endured as a result of this. No one signs up to have to do this in this role. And I think us moving forward through this requires all of us to have an understanding that we're kind of outside of our scope here. We need to think really strategically as an organization how we have a structure that supports the decision-making and the needs that are at hand. Because, I mean, I can just speak from my own experience of when I became the director in December 2023, what this organization looked like was vastly different from what it looks like now. We have 7 operational committees. We have 2 full-time staff, 1 part-time staff, 4 interns. And so at the end of the day, with the market fitting into our scope of fitting into it, it has really outgrown itself and what it needs to be successful. So I'm going to close soon, but I want to just close with a sincere apology to our committee members for the lack of support and clarity and guidance that we need to work strategically and organizationally to provide. I can't take responsibility for the messages themselves, but I know it's something that we are going to have to tactically work through.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so to tie this up in a little bit, so the discussion of selling branded promotional items, as a board right now, we have a policy that is in place but not in place.
Todd
So,
had something to say.
okay, yeah, I'm sorry, you have more.
No, here's my only comment. First of all, I respect everybody who is involved with the farmer's market because you guys are artisans. You bring a product, you sell a product. I'm a merchant myself. I have 2 small businesses in downtown Hammond, so I appreciate what you guys do. Part of what I do is I develop goodwill for my brands. What is goodwill for your brand? Goodwill is making your brand successful. Goodwill is expanding your brand and taking that brand to new levels. Part of goodwill for your brand is branding your brand. So when it comes to me providing my customer with something that markets my brand, I'm for it, okay? Do I think it should be 100% of what you do at the marketplace? I don't, all right? So, but I think it should be allowed at the marketplace. This is my opinion, so shoot me if you want to. We can fight later, I don't care. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't get an opportunity to market your brand, you're not gonna expand your brand beyond what you're doing right now. And the hope of every small business owner is to grow their brand. I've done it. I'm in my 13th year in downtown Hammond. I have 2 businesses now, and we've grown those businesses very successfully. So I think that marketing should be a part of what you do. Okay, that's my opinion. Whatever this board agrees or disagrees, I'm Todd DeLon. I'm a merchant in downtown Hammond. Okay, if a decision was made to do that at a percentage or whatever, that decision should have been honored. Okay, I also know that social media can make or break small businesses. So to have a visceral response on social media to something that you disagreed with probably wasn't the smartest tactic for that. That's my opinion. Again, my opinion. So I think what the end result of this conversation needs to be is that if you're a merchant and you want to grow your brand, you should be allowed to do that. And if you put a percentage on it, put a percentage on it, whatever you find is appropriate. But you need to be able to grow your brand. I agree with that 100%. Social media can destroy somebody, so you have to be extremely careful how you use social media. You'll never find me posting something negative on social media because I've got customers in my business who are on both sides of the political aisle, and I can't afford to separate those people because they're all my customers. So that's my advice for that segment of what we talked about today. However, in the end, I think if this committee has any authority to a vote on allowing a customer, a merchant to grow their brand, I'm 100% for that. That's my opinion. If you agree, good. If you don't, it's cool. We'll still be friends in the end.
I think that's a board decision.
That's my 2 cents.
I think
Cool.
that needs to be the board's decision.
Well,
Yeah.
well, so it really, the way, so again, this was not a vote to, it was a policy that was not there. It was a discussion on how to do it. It was presented, and so really the vote was, so the vote was to say no to having something that was never there to begin with that was being approved, which was so weird, and we didn't even know it was being approved. But regardless, would it have come to the board to say, we want to adopt, the next step would be, this was an advisory vote? Yeah. Well, the deal is was it a strong enough thing that we were taking to the board to say, we want to put in policy that you can't have that? I don't know if.
So
I don't agree with that.
And I may have had a different opinion if I really understood that this was being approved already.
So I think, let me just say,
We're gonna be here all night if.
right,
No, we're about to wrap it up.
I just want
Question
to
is,
state,
what is the desired outcome of this?
That's, so right now, it was basically because we want to make sure everybody could talk about this because of the deal. But right now, we have a policy that it has been approved, not really being approved for a while.
Okay.
Are we wanting to continue to uphold and let this happen until we have further discussion?
I got you right here, John.
Because I'm gonna have, but before you say, this is my highly recommendation, I am gonna say that we uphold with these members that give their time due until the date that it comes up next, unless that post gets taken down. And we're gonna go next into policy, and that came up from that. So that's what I vote, but we have.
Well, yeah, I mean, we all, look, so I'm going to speak real briefly on it. I don't personally have social media. My restaurant does, and we only post about the restaurant. And that's it. And things could have been handled outside of that. I personally don't believe that any business at the market should be restrained from at least having a small percentage to be able to promote themselves. There's no harm that can come from that. And who are we as a board to deny that opportunity because they didn't do whatever at home, if it's a percentage that we all can agree upon? And I don't know if it's allowed for us to get started with that right now and get it over with.
But I have a question, though. I don't want to negate everything this committee has done.
Right.
So when is the next committee meeting?
the
Or we
next
could
committee-
or we could put something on the table for the committee to discuss.
What needs to happen, is because it's, if they're willing to do, if they want to have that done, they come to us and we say we agree or not.
But it needs to
But
come from the
It
committee.
needs to come from the McKinney, because they decide they want to police it.
I mean, I'm not saying police it, but I mean,
but it would
what we're
be-
saying is, I mean,
But-
why don't we give them something to take back to the committee to discuss?
Well, they can. This is what's going to happen. That's
Well,
the-
then,
you know,
Okay,
we're-
so
you're
do-
saying you agree to that, that's a good idea. That's
So
great
do we
for
need,
them to
I would
have.
like to make a motion.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I got a
Let's
percentage.
see if I can do this. I would like to make a motion that we ask the Farmers and Artisans Market Committee to re-evaluate this request at their upcoming meeting, which is when?
Thursday, July 10th at 5 p.m. in the February Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. At Thursday, July 10th, at that meeting, and any of the board members who would like to be there to participate, great. If, any other farmers market vendors would like to be there to participate, great. I think they need to reevaluate this at that meeting. I agree, and I also would like to say we will allow the merchandise that's been allowed right now to continue until that decision is made at that meeting, if that post is taken down. I agree with that completely. I know you didn't have any ill intent, but it was very disparaging, and the comments, the people who work for parish government are commenting on it, bashing the DDD. It's a very bad look for the DDD. If I did that to my employer, I would be fired. So I'm happy, so that's my motion. My motion is that the committee please review that at their next meeting to reevaluate the decision, but that the merch be allowed to be sold until that meeting happens,
Pending the move.
pending that the post is removed.
I second.
Can I make an amendment to the motion and go ahead and
You
throw a
can.
percentage out to them that they could
No,
discuss?
we
No,
want
we have a
the,
motion on the table. You
Let's
can,
do that.
you can make a different motion after this vote.
Okay, cool.
John Exnicius,
Yes.
Mary Gito,
Yes.
Todd DeLon,
Yes.
Yes.
Chance Kinchin, Kayla Morgan,
Yes.
Hillary Roderick. Okay.
All right. Chance, do you
Give
want
another
I'd like to make a motion that they discuss 20 to 25% of the total SKUs sold at the farmer's market be for promotional items. Huh?
At least a percentage.
A percentage allowed, 20 to 25%. Discuss in that range of the promotional items to be
So-
allowed to be the.
I'm going to say no on that, but
I mean, do you have a second?
Okay, let them have it, that's fine.
So, I just want to say something really quickly regarding the future discussions that will happen with this is from a process perspective and an implementation perspective of the calculations of percentages, the specificity as it relates to some of these restrictions. I mean, I think that the basis of a policy that is made, there needs to be research done in advance of these things so that the committee can have substantive discussion about them. That usually falls on the due diligence of the market manager to do so. And in reviewing agendas and in making sure that Savannah is prepared for these meetings, and our future farmers market manager, that's where the complexity of some of these things can get out of hand, where we are not equipped to have these discussions. And so the discussion that we are asking for now will happen in the future, but moving forward, I mean, because we will not have a manager on the 10th, it will be my role in this discussion to provide that guidance. I want to make sure that that is clearly known to our committee members and to our board, because that's really how this works, is the due diligence of all the research in advance of these committee meetings really falls upon the market manager. And if the market manager is one of the only ones that's walking into this meeting prepared to do so, then I don't know if anyone is prepared to make a decision about best practices. So I just want to make sure that that is noted in preparation for this discussion and meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right. Moving on. Notification of board seat, largest assessed property owner nomination.
This is just notification that we have one of our largest assessed property owner seats open. The largest, I have a list of the 10 largest assessed property owners within the district. It is also available on our website. Within the nomination packet, we are accepting nominations through June 27th to serve on our board of directors.
All right. Any discussion about that? Okay. So, next one, discussion of code of conduct policy on representation of the DDD in public and on social media to include board members, committee members, staff, and vendors. So, in particularly in the policies and procedures of the farmers market, they address when there is conflict between farmers market and vendors and they don't address between farmers market and the actual DDD that they're under, or the vendors to the farmers market. So from this social media thing, there were members of other committees that were commenting on it. There needs to be a policy in place where anybody who is affiliated under any of these tiers, we are a team until you decide that this isn't, when you decide this isn't working for you and you want to go out and then you can talk all this, your opinions, that's fine. But while you're part of this team, there's a procedure in place that is internally discussed first before it goes to the masses, where bits and pieces are taken out of context. So my recommendation is that we come up with a policy and procedures for.
Andre's not here.
I'm not saying today,
I don't know how enforceable stuff like that is, because technically it can be subdivided into you speaking on behalf of your business. If you have a business page and a personal page are two separate things, and I don't know I don't get into all of that,
Well,
and.
I think part of it is we're considered
It's-
public servants, right?
Correct, but I mean,
But committee members, some of the same
Merchants aren't.
guidelines- No, what am I talking about?
committee
Merchants? I'm
members
talking
were
about other
posted.
committee members, people
Yeah.
on your committee, people on Hillary's committee were commenting on this post.
Right.
Under their personal
Negatively.
names,
And
negative.
right,
I'm
and I
also
get
talk-
that,
and I'm
I get
also
that, but
talking
it says vendors on here.
I
Yeah, the
lumped it
vendor
because
fee
there's multiple things. Also, staff should not be responding on somebody else's Facebook page to answer an issue.
Trust me, I have that policy in place. at my
There's multiple places that this was affected. I'm not saying let's come up with the policy tonight, but I would like to vote that we make policy that also needs to be put in the handbook for the farmer's market as well as,
All
of us.
just as a whole,
yes.
not just
We
for
don't
the
have to-
farmer's market.
We can go to Andre and figure out if there's things.
'Cause it's gonna be some things, because I mean, I have policy in place for my staff,
Yeah.
for my business, but it's a very weird subject.
So
How do
I'd
you-
like,
I'm sure
can I
it
make
is.
a motion?
Yep.
So I'd like to make a motion that we consult with Andre Kudrain, who is the attorney, to come up with language to put a policy in place for this code of conduct
I second.
representation.
Excellent, I second.
Hold on, y'all. My fingers can only go so fast, okay? Okay, John Exnicius,
Yes.
Mary Gito,
Yes.
Todd Delon,
Yes.
Chance Kinchin.
Yes.
Kayla Morgan, Hillary Rotcheck.
All right, any announcements?
Happy Father's
Oh yeah, happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
All right, and any public comments? Has everybody public commented out? Any other ones? All right, then a meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
All right.
Hey, John, I need you to sign a couple things real quick.
Be safe, all right?